Official estimates suggest it shortened the Second World War by at least 2 years, saving millions of lives. And yet, it was a weapon that fired no bullets, a battlefield with no trenches, and an army whose soldiers were sworn to absolute secrecy for decades after the fighting stopped. Welcome to 10-Minute History. I'm your host, Jake Sullivan, and today we're uncovering the story of the Shadow War, the secret conflict of codebreakers, spies, and saboteurs whose intellectual triumphs were as decisive as any battle. While armies clashed across the globe, a silent war was being waged over the airwaves. This was a war of intellect, a race between codemakers and codebreakers. The Germans believed they had the ultimate weapon in this race, the Enigma machine. Picture a complex typewriter. An operator presses a key for a letter, say A, and an electrical current passes through a series of scrambling rotors, lighting up a lamp for a different letter, say Q. The genius of it was that after each key press, the rotors would turn, changing the entire electrical path. So if you pressed A, again, it wouldn't be Q this time, but something completely different. The German military added a plug board that swapped letters before they even entered the rotors, increasing the number of possible starting positions into the quintillions. They were supremely confident they had created a truly unbreakable cipher. They were wrong. The British and French intelligence agencies, experts in classical codebreaking, looked at Enigma and declared it impossible to crack. But on Germany's eastern border, Poland knew that penetrating German communications was a matter of national survival. Instead of linguists, the Polish Cipher Bureau recruited 3 brilliant young mathematicians, Marian Rejewski, Jerzy Rzycki, and Henryk Zagalski. They correctly guessed that a machine cipher needed a mathematical attack. Through a combination of French espionage and a spectacular feat of intellectual brilliance, Marian Rejewski used group theory to exploit a flaw in how German operators transmitted their daily keys. In late 1932, he did the impossible. He deduced the complete internal wiring of the German military Enigma rotors. The Poles could now, in principle, read Enigma messages. They even built their own electromechanical machines, which they called Bombes, to help find the daily keys. But by the summer of 1939, with a German invasion just weeks away, the Poles made a decision that would change the course of history. At a secret conference in a forest near Warsaw, they met with their bewildered British and French counterparts. They laid everything on the table, their mathematical methods, the rotor wirings, the blueprints for their Bombe machines, and 2 fully functional, reverse-engineered Enigmas. It was a gift of incalculable value, delivered in the nick of time. The Allies weren't starting from scratch. They were standing on the shoulders of giants. The British hub for this new war of the mind was a sprawling Victorian mansion called Bletchley Park, codenamed Station X. Its leaders set out to recruit men of the professor type, and soon the estate's hastily built wooden huts were filled with an eclectic mix of mathematicians, linguists, chess grandmasters, and even winners of a crossword puzzle competition. They were the Boffins and Debs of Britain's most secret war-winning enterprise. At the heart of this intellectual powerhouse was a brilliant and socially awkward Cambridge mathematician named Alan Turing. Turing recognized that the Polish Bombe wasn't fast enough to handle the ever-increasing complexity of German Enigma. So he designed a new machine, the Bombe, based on a different logical principle. Turing's Bombe didn't search for the correct key among the quintillions of possibilities. Instead, it hunted for logical contradictions. The codebreakers would use a crib, which was a short piece of suspected plaintext. For example, a standard weather report might always contain the German phrase for weather forecast. The bomb would then test every possible rotor setting against this crib, and if a setting produced a contradiction, like requiring a letter to be encrypted as itself, which Enigma couldn't do, it would discard it and move on. When a setting was found that produced no contradictions, the machine would stop. This stop gave the codebreakers a tiny number of possibilities to test by hand. Turing's genius turned an impossible search into a manageable daily task. Nowhere was this daily battle more critical than in the Atlantic Ocean. Britain, an island nation, depended on convoys of ships bringing food, fuel, and war materials from North America. Admiral Karl Donitz, the commander of Germany's U-boat fleet, intended to sever this lifeline with his wolf packs, groups of submarines that hunted the convoys. The German naval Enigma, however, was far more secure than the Army or Air Force versions. For a time, Turing's team in Hut 8 was blind. The breakthrough had to come from the sea itself. The Royal Navy began a series of daring pinch operations, deliberately targeting German ships to capture their code materials. The ultimate prize came in May 1941, when the crew of the destroyer HMS Bulldog boarded the abandoned, sinking U-boat U-110. At immense risk, they recovered a complete, intact Enigma machine and all of its current codebooks. It was an intelligence jackpot. With these materials, Hut 8 could read the main U-boat cipher. They could see where Donitz was sending his wolf packs and route the convoys around them. Shipping losses plummeted. But the reprieve was temporary. In February 1942, the Germans introduced a new, four-rotor Enigma for their Atlantic U-boats. The Allies called the new cipher Shark, and they couldn't break it. This began a 10-month blackout period. The effect was catastrophic. Sinkings soared to their highest levels of the war, threatening to starve Britain into submission. The race was on to build four-rotor bombs and find a way back in. Once again, a pinch proved vital. In October 1942, the crew of HMS Petard managed to retrieve the new codebooks from the sinking U-559. By December, Bletchley Park was back in business. From then until the end of the war, the Allies could read U-boat communications. Combined with new technologies like long-range aircraft and radar, this intelligence was devastating. May 1943 became known as Black May for the U-boat fleet, which suffered such catastrophic losses that Donitz was forced to pull them from the North Atlantic. The Battle of the Atlantic was effectively won. But Enigma, as tough as it was, wasn't even the Germans' most secure system. For the highest-level communications, messages between Hitler and his top generals, they used a vastly more complex 12-rotor teleprinter machine, which Bletchley Park nicknamed Tunny. This was considered completely unbreakable, until a German operator in 1941 made a colossal blunder. He sent a long message twice, using the exact same secret key but with minor variations in the text. This gave Bletchley a tiny crack. The two intercepted messages were given to Bill Tutt, a brilliant young mathematician. In one of the greatest intellectual feats of the war, using only pencil and paper, Tutt reverse-engineered the entire logical structure of the 12-rotor Tunny machine, a machine he had never even seen. But breaking Tunny messages by hand took weeks. They needed another machine. An engineering genius at the post office research station named Tommy Flowers proposed a radical solution, a massive electronic device using 1,600 vacuum tubes. Skeptics said it would be too unreliable, but Flowers knew better. The result was Colossus. Operational in December 1943, Colossus was the world's first large-scale programmable electronic digital computer. It reduced the time to find a Tunny key from weeks to mere hours. The intelligence from Colossus was the highest strategic value imaginable. It was Hitler's own mail. Now the Allies could read his direct orders and his generals' frank assessments of the war. This incredible capability, combining code-breaking, human spies, and deception, reached its peak in the lead-up to D-Day. The success of the 1944 Normandy landings depended on one thing: surprise. To achieve it, the Allies concocted Operation Fortitude, the most complex deception in military history. The goal was to convince the German High Command that the main invasion would strike at the Pas de Calais, the closest point to England, and that Normandy was just a feint. They created a Phantom Army, the first U.S. Army group, supposedly commanded by the famous General George S. Patton. This ghost army was made real, with inflatable rubber tanks, dummy landing craft, and a torrent of fake radio traffic. The deception was fed to the Germans by a network of captured German agents who had been turned by MI5. The star of this so-called double-cross system was a Spanish agent codenamed Garbo, who created a fictional spy ring of 27 sub-agents. The Germans trusted him so completely, they even awarded him the Iron Cross for his services. But how did the Allies know the deception was working? The answer was Colossus. The Tunny decrypts provided a direct window into Hitler's thinking. They could read German intelligence reports showing their enemy piecing together all the fake information. Crucially, the decrypts revealed Hitler's personal orders forbidding his powerful panzer divisions from moving to Normandy. He was holding them back to fight the Ghost Army at Calais. This hesitation gave the Allies the precious time they needed to secure their fragile beachhead. The success of D-Day was a military triumph, made possible by the ultimate intelligence coup. The impact of the Shadow War was felt across the globe. In the Pacific, American codebreakers led by Joseph Rochefort at Pearl Harbor partially broke the Japanese naval code, JN-25. This allowed Admiral Nimitz to know the exact Japanese plan for the Battle of Midway in 1942. He set an ambush that resulted in the sinking of 4 Japanese aircraft carriers, a blow from which their navy never recovered. The work done at Bletchley Park and other Allied intelligence centers shortened the war by an estimated 2 to 4 years. It also gave birth to our modern world. The Colossus computer was the direct ancestor of the device you're using to watch this video. Wartime agencies like the Government Code and Cipher School and the Office of Strategic Services became the modern GCHQ and CIA. But this history is also a tragedy. Alan Turing, the genius whose work was instrumental in saving the nation, was persecuted after the war for his homosexuality. He was convicted, forced to undergo chemical castration, and died in 1954 in what was ruled a suicide. It was only in 2013 that he was granted a posthumous royal pardon, a long overdue apology to a man who helped shape the modern world from the shadows. The history of the Second World War is often told through the grand narrative of armies and battles. But beneath it lies a secret history, one that proves that victory can be achieved not just through brute force, but through superior intellect. It's a powerful lesson that the course of human events is often turned not by the loudest explosion, but by the deciphering of the most secret whisper. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know down in the comments below. If you found this interesting or learned something new, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to 10-Minute History for more deep dives. Thanks for listening.